is it a little selfish thinking for oneself, or we could call this as a journey when we are shifting towards thinking more than ourselves? What do you think?
Again, it is a journey. It's not a one-time event. Of course, we both ego and love have been planted in us, and they are opposite of each other.
Hmm.
Ego is a dividing principle, whereas love is a uniting principle. So, in that sense, they work in opposite directions. But both have been planted in us with a purpose, because ego does have a useful purpose. It is because of that that we end up doing something meaningful, doing something, accomplishing something in life. And even on the spiritual path, it goes a long way, because the sense that I'm giving a certain direction to my life, the way, I mean, you have decided to give a particular direction in your life, also involves that I have decided to do this, although the rest of the world may not agree, but this I feel is the right thing to do, and therefore I have chosen it.
Yeah.
Now, it's again the ego working,
Mm.
but it's an enlightened ego. An enlightened ego which is being supported by a mind which is also illumined from your deepest self. So instead of the superficial sort of emotional part of the being, the unrefined emotional part of the being, which is seeking short term fleeting pleasures, this enlightened part of the emotional part of the being is looking for a deeper satisfaction. It is not looking just for intensity, it is also looking for uh, sustainability, to use your word,
Yeah.
sustained happiness. It's looking for
Yeah.
not short term fleeting pleasures, but sustained happiness. So, and then it finds that something can be sustained only if you are devoted to something that is sustained, only if you love something which is sustainable. And in that sense, that I mean, if I digress a bit, Sri Aurobindo says that in all types of love, we seek two things
Mm.
primarily. One is intensity, the other is permanence.
Mm.
We enjoy loving
Mm.
because of its intensity. We
Mm.
want it to be more and more intense.
Yeah.
And we want that object of love
Mm.
to be permanent.
Mm.
Now, when it comes to worldly objects or people,
Mm.
whether it's objects that we love or people whom we love, uh, we sooner or later realize that the intensity may be there, but the permanence is not there.
Yeah.
Permanence resides only in one thing, and that is the divine.
Yeah.
And therefore, even when we are doing for people, you are
Mm.
not doing it for those people, you are doing it for the divine in those people.
Yeah.
You're seeing them as manifestations of the
Yes.
divine.
Yes.
So basically, your love is for the divine, and you're expressing it by uh, loving
Mm.
those whom you are seeing as the manifestation of the
Mm.
divine. And among them, you are actually giving to those who need what you can give. But ultimately, it is for the divine, and that is what gives it a sense of permanence. So that's why this joy is sustained. So, Sri Aurobindo says again, that it's a mistake to feel that there is no intensity in the love for the divine or psychic love, the
Mm.
love which comes from the deepest and the highest part
Mm.
of the self. There's no intensity in that. It says that both can be equally intense.
Mm.
What differentiates the two is the type of flame that is there, which gives it that intensity.
Mm.
In the ordinary love, it is a red flame,
Mm.
whereas in the psychic love, it's a white flame.
Oh.
Red is something which indicates fire, which can burn, whereas white is indicative of knowledge,
Mm.
which is an enlightened
Yeah.
intensity. So it is that which gives it. So that is what makes this different.
Mm.
So there can be that same intensity in that love, which is basically love for the divine, but expressing itself through the creation of the divine.
Mm. Absolutely. Plus, I believe that there is certain kind of, not just, I won't say happiness, because happiness would be something that is temporary. I would say ananda, which is bliss, that we experience when we work for the divine and work according to the divine. So letting our life flow. So how can we actually let our life flow and, stop contemplating or thinking what is good for me, overthinking about what is the choice, and then we're thinking that what if I regret this making this choice? What do you think about this?
Uh, Well, there are a few things, and the same answer may not apply to everybody.
Hmm.
That is true.
Yeah.
Because some of us are inclined to think more,
Hmm.
we are more intellectually oriented, some do not think so much. And to some extent, too much of thinking can be an obstacle rather than a help.
Mm-hmm.
But all the same, having done that, some general principles hold for everybody.
Mm.
And that is, firstly, to realize that it's a journey
Mm.
we are on, in which the journey itself is more important than the destination.
Yeah.
And while we are on this journey, the spiritual journey, uh, we are going through a process that involves both inner work and outer work. And the two sustain each other. The balance between inner and outer work may be different for different individuals, but to some extent, everybody is doing both
Mm.
by and large. So, what happens is that as a result of the work that we are doing in the spirit of expressing our love for others,
Mm-hmm.
we find that there are choices to be made. And as you said, these choices, where do they come from? We try and make a conscious effort that whenever there's a choice to be made, it comes from the deepest self, that is the psychic being or the dynamic aspect of the soul. That is where it comes from.
Mm.
And as a result of this, what happens is that not only that choice brings us joy and lasting mental
Mm-hmm.
peace, in contrast with a sense of guilt and recurrent uneasiness, if
Mm.
we were to make a choice which is different from
Mm.
this choice coming from there.
Mm. Right.
So we experience that joy. Now, sometimes we may make that type of choice, sometimes we even neglect this voice and
Mm.
make some other choice because of various temptations and compulsions.
Mm.
Uh, we may neglect this voice. When we neglect that, then we get this guilt and recurrent
Mm-hmm.
uneasiness. Now, both types of experiences
Mm.
are actually generating material for inner work.
Mm.
And that's why that inner work, having some time to yourself, is important.
Mm.
During that period of uh, introspection, what one is doing is going through a mental churning
Mm-hmm.
and is strengthening the resolve to stay more and more aligned with our deepest self. So, this inner work that we are doing during that introspection or meditation or whatever you like to call it reflects in our outer life.
Yeah.
And then the outer life generates the material for further introspection.
Right.
So both these are going on.
Yeah.
So this applies to everybody. But then the one who is more intellectually inclined will naturally ask more questions, will have more doubts, uh, which means that
Mm.
more of inner work
Mm.
may be necessary.
Mm.
But all the same, the process remains the same essentially for everybody. Whereas on the other hand, in contrast with the person who thinks too much and asks too many questions, in contrast with this, the person who works in a spirit of devotion for the divine and in a spirit of total surrender will probably have fewer questions.
Mm.
Uh, so we are all made differently. And then
Mm.
again, uh, one is not necessarily better than the other.
Mm.
Uh, we should try to be what we are.
Yeah.
And within that, see what is the path that is best suited to us. And that is the type of flexibility which Sri Aurobindo and the mother have given us in integral
Mm.
yoga. Each person carves out his or her own path
Mm.
depending upon our inclinations and circumstances.
Absolutely.